Hey, what's up, guys? Investor here. So, apparently, I made some changes to my settings. I was wondering, am I live? Can you guys hear me? I see Melissa's in the house. It looks like I'm live, and I'm hoping you can hear me. The mic looks like it's on. So, awesome. Welcome. I'm trying to move my chat window here because I changed some things by accident, and now I'm trying to make sure I can see the window so that I can read you guys. Yes, thank you for confirming. Sounds like it's on. So awesome. Awesome. Hope everyone is doing well. I hope you guys are staying safe and healthy. And hopefully your mood is okay. Your spirits are up. I know the news is not any better, but, doing what we can in isolation without being isolated. We can be physically separated, but we don't have to be isolated, right? Not in this day and age. Just the technology is amazing. Things that we're able to do and stay connected. So let me do a few things here. I'm going to post a link on the Slack group here and on Twitter, and we will rock and get to it. So really the plan here today is I'm going to look at some charts. Of course, we'll look at Bitcoin. I want to look at the dominance chart, and we'll take a look at the stock market here. It's been bouncing the last couple of days. No surprise there, considering the crazy oversoldness, the ridiculous amount of stimulus and all that. It was just due for a little bit of a short squeeze, and that's what we're seeing right now. But let me finish this up here, and I think we are ready to go. All right, one more thing, one more thing. All right. Cool. All right, so yeah, let's rock. Let's do this here. So look at the main chart here first, and I'll leave some room here if you guys want to take a look at some other charts here later. But for now, I'm going to keep it high level. There's a couple of things that I'm watching. Obviously, the price of Bitcoin has completely gone flat in the last couple of days. I mean, if you look at this price action, it's pretty wild. I was into the start of the week. What I was personally looking for here was we saw this rise, and I was thinking we might see a little bit of a double top play out here. That would have corresponded, very well with the higher time frames, which was looking like a little bit of a bear flag, a wedge, if you want to call it that, right into the 22 daily EMA. And so, yeah, my bias was short. It looked like we were about to get that here on this day here, this little reversal, and hasn't done anything. It's just been sitting there. I thought for sure today, I'm thinking this is it, decision time. You can see I've got a lower trend line drawn here on the chart, and there's this upper trend line, clear resistance, basically above that 6,900 level, and just flat, very range bound for the last several days. I mean, last 2 days, but it feels like a long time, right, in the crypto space. But just kind of sitting tight, a little bit of fake outs here. If you zoom in, the 1 hour chart, you can, I think this is too close of a view for now. Earlier, it was worth looking at, but right now, because price and volatility has really flattened out, it's better to just zoom out and look at the higher time frames. And you can see clearly the 4 hour chart's gone flat. There's a couple of things that I'm watching here on this near term action. If price starts to close above 6,900 on that 4 hour chart, I expect we'll see a pretty quick pop to the next resistance level, which right now is around 7,400, 7,500, in and around that zone. That lines up well with the little miniature pause support base. I don't even know what you want to call it that, but this little section here around April 9th through 11th, or excuse me, March 9th through 11th. So in and around this range, maybe as high as 8K would be the next target on the way up. Personally, I mean, the fact that it's held up here and continue to not dump is good, but it's one of those. Is it good that it's not dumping, or is it just kind of pausing for the next leg down? And so what I'm using is the daily view here. Let me put the moving averages back on here. I'm using the 10 and the 22 EMA for this, by the way. And let me erase this line here real quick. And it's very clear. We can see that price is just kind of sitting tight below this daily 22 EMA, which is this yellow line that has come down. And typically this zone in between the two moving averages is a little bit of a value zone, if you want to call it that. We had this first big wick right up to that here last week, then pulled back, and I thought, all right, here we go. But it's just just kind of sitting there, man. Not a whole lot going on. So me personally, I'm still kind of in the bearish bias, thinking this is a little bit of a wedge, bear flag bounce on the daily chart. And at minimum, I'd like to see a higher daily low form here before I'm a little bit more in the bullish camp. I mean, basically, yes, we bounced from some crazy oversold conditions. Price has had, from a percentage basis, a tremendous move up. I mean, from the wick low, which, I mean, let's be honest, the wick low was, you know, less than an hour maybe. But, you know, that's a huge move. It was like 70-80% from the wick low. Even if you look at it from these most recent lows that were tested, it's still up, you know, 40%. So it's had a good bounce from a percentage basis, but that's not unusual considering the very fast and swift drop we had just before that. And so that's kind of the camp I'm in now, but you know, it could go either way from here. It's certainly just kind of sitting tight. You're getting this little bit of a wedge, a little bit of a bear flag bounce. And so even if it continues higher, this pattern could continue to play out. Maybe we do break higher and we finally hit that 7,500, and then that's where it starts to fail, and then we get a little bit of a test here. And that's really what I'm looking for, the test, right? The higher low, where that lands is kind of anyone's guess. Maybe it makes a higher low here at this 5,700 level. Maybe it drops back down. Does it make a new low? Personally, I doubt it. I don't see a new low being made here. I think that was a climactic drop, a washout low. But, you know, anything can happen right now. You got the halving coming up. No one's talking about the halving anymore. It's gone quiet ever since the big dump. But that's still out there. That's still in play. Could still be a factor here. So certainly some things to be watching. And that's really what I'm looking for here. So if it doesn't break here in the near term, maybe we get that pop to the next level up and then it pulls back at that point. So that's the camp I'm in right now. You know, neutral here, near term. It could go either way, absolutely. Look at this 4-hour chart. There's really no direction here. But intermediate term, you know, next few days, I'm thinking we still get a little bit of a pullback. How that plays out is anyone's guess, right? It could pop higher, shake out the shorts, and then drop. Or I could just dump straight from here, crack below that lower trend line, and then, you know, get that retest here to the downside. So kind of my short bias right now is what I'm looking for after this little bit of a bounce that we've seen here. But just watch that lower trend line at the end of the day. That's really what I'm watching. This kind of lower trend line here has really established a rising support, if you will. And even on the 4-hour chart, price is just kind of crawling along these moving averages, which are heading higher. So going to be interesting to see here. But yeah, there's less volume here. Typically, that is bearish in a bear flag bounce, right? You see price start to rise as volume gets quieter and quieter. Typically is bearish. So that's why I'm in that camp for now. But we'll see how that goes. Now, here's the other thing to note, right? If we look at the Bitcoin dominance, this is going to be a little bit of an interesting alternative point of view, if you will. Let me close this out here. And so I posted this on Twitter earlier if you hadn't seen it, but this is the daily view of the Bitcoin dominance. And in fact, let me clean this up here just to make it clear. I'll take the volume and stuff off because personally that to me doesn't matter a whole lot as much as just pure price support resistance. Now, I typically don't use this a whole lot for trading decisions, but it's kind of a good macro view to see, you know, is Bitcoin can outperform or alts can outperform? And that's really the decision, right? What's the better place to be, Bitcoin or alts, if you're going to be long or short one or the other? And I was, you know, looking for a little bit of a balance. We hit that downside target, you know, last month or whatever. Feels like forever ago, but it was at 62%. Finally hit that target and started to bounce during this whole big drop we saw during the collapse. Bitcoin held, I wouldn't say held up better. The alts performed worse than Bitcoin is what I'm saying. And that was not unusual, right? The alts are high beta, meaning on the way up, they'll outperform, on the way down, they'll underperform. And that's what we saw. We saw most of the alts. So we'll look at the alt BTC pairs here in a minute. And they all dropped further than Bitcoin, right? And their alt BTC pairs are still dropping. But I'm looking at this point of the chart saying maybe we've hit the point I was looking for, that 68%. And is it time for the alt BTC pairs to bounce a little bit? And that could be what we're seeing here. If this just continues to spike higher and the alt BTC pairs just get smacked even from here, then look for that 70 to 71% Bitcoin dominance as the next target, which is this prior range up here. So a retest of that higher range, right? So that's if the alt BTC pairs just can't get any legs here and just continue to drop then that's what I'm looking for. But I'm thinking maybe we get a bounce here. It's at 68%. We'll get a pullback on the BTC dominance, which means some of those bigger cap names versus Bitcoin will show a little bit of bounce action, some life. And so that's something to be keeping an eye on. It'll be interesting, especially if Bitcoin drops from here. Let's say we get a pullback on the daily chart of Bitcoin, makes a higher low. It'll be interesting to see if the alt BTC pairs try to buck that trend, or at least hold their ground, if you will. If we look at some of the alt BTC pairs here, let me go back to, I'll do ETH BTC here. And so looking at this higher time frame, right, if we go to the 4-hour view, you know, I know this is a little bit of an eye chart. Let me clear it up a little bit for you guys. But here on the top left, I've got Ethereum, Bitcoin. Down here is EOS Bitcoin. Up here on the top right is Litecoin Bitcoin. And here is XRP versus Bitcoin. And clearly, you know, since the month of March, all of these alts have been lagging versus Bitcoin. I mean, they've been dropping to some degree, right? Of course, there's always holdouts. We'll look at those. I mean, if you look at the trending list here on Node Insiders, yeah, there's names that are bucking the trend versus Bitcoin, and they're having some tremendous moves. But you're looking at the big cap names, right? The bigger picture, you're seeing them drop. And that's why the dominance chart is dropping. That's why the BTC dominance has been lagging here as of late. But I'm keeping an eye on this, especially ETH, right? You look at ETH BTC here, starting to wedge down here, still riding below the moving averages. But I'm going to keep an eye on this to see if maybe there's this shakeout and then a pop, or if it finally gets a crack above this upper trend line that's dropping, and could start to signal a little bit of a turning in the alt Bitcoin pairs. Even if BTC decides to pull back here a little bit, you know, will some of these pairs not drop as much? Will they hold up? That's going to be the interesting thing. That's what I'm going to be watching for. Can we get some bounce action on these pairs? And that could be a nice little hedge if Bitcoin starts to drop. And you know, you can see some decent percentage moves on some of these, even a retracement bounce that only goes partial. You know, you're talking double digits in most cases, double-digit percentage moves in most cases here versus the big caps. And that could also translate into some of the mid-tier names showing even bigger gains, right? As is often the case. So it's just something I'm watching right now. I think it's worth noting. Bitcoin dominance chart is bouncing right into resistance. Maybe some of these alt BTC pairs are finally ready to show a little bit of life, because right now they've just been pummeled versus Bitcoin. No surprise, everybody knows the news, right? We've seen the price action here recently. If you look at something like ETH USD, just got slaughtered during that last drop. I mean, you know, we were looking at 300 soon, right? We were knocking on the door of 300, and at the lows, the wick lows, you know, you saw double-digit Ethereum prices, right? Sub $100 ETH, and just has been slaughtered here. Even as Bitcoin dropped, these dropped further. And so I'm thinking maybe they get a little bit of life here. And so looking at ETH, for example, from the USD pair, you know, it is starting to form a little bit of a wedge here. You know, maybe an ascending triangle type of pattern here. But either way, the notion of horizontal price resistance is pretty clear. You know, once it starts to get over that 145 mark, you know, that'll be a clear of resistance. And then at that point, you're looking at potentially 180s as your next target, if it can do that. Obviously, if Bitcoin drops, the USD pair might just drop along with it here, and you get a break to the downside. So right now, everything is just range bound. Everything is in a holding pattern. Bitcoin is just kind of one of those, you know, the meme is coming back. Come on, Bitcoin, do something. And that's what we're waiting on. It's just one of those, okay, just sit tight and wait for this to play out. A couple ways to play this. Now, keep in mind, when you're trading a tight range like this, the risk is a shakeout, right? The Darth Maul wicks, the big pop and the drop, which will just, you know, just take out the stops, if you will. It's very common in crypto, unfortunately. But that being said, there's a couple of strategies to employ here. If you're betting on the downside, but you don't want to preempt it, let's say you're thinking, I'll just wait until it actually cracks to the downside, then the level I'd be looking for is around that 64.50, in and around there. Maybe even 6,400 if you wanted to be a little bit more conservative. And then in the event that that gets filled, I would personally keep a tight stop just above this range, 6,800. So that translates to a 5% move, which is a lot for Bitcoin on the upside. So you have to adjust the position size accordingly. But in that event, you're looking for a downside test of at least this 5,800. And that's a 2-to-1 ratio there. Me personally, that's kind of my minimum. If I see a trade that has a 2-to-1 risk reward ratio, then I'll take it. And if that happens, right, if you get this little scenario play out, then 5,800 might not hold in that case, and then you could get a little bit of a deeper drop, so it would make the risk reward ratio a little bit better at that point, maybe even a 3-to-1, which would be a retest of this support back here. And so the risk reward's not bad in that scenario, and that's considering, you know, you have like a buy stop order or some sort of trigger that doesn't get you in until after it breaks, you know, 6,400, 6,450. On the flip side, you could also play it to the upside, right? Either accumulate now, keep a tight stop, same basic place, 6,450, 6,400 or so, and look for that first target to the upside, which is a little bit smaller, but it's still a 12% move. And if you keep your tight stop here, you're talking about a 4% stop with the 12% upside. Yeah, that's about a 3.5 risk reward multiple. Not bad, not bad. And you can also take the alternative route and just say, hey, until it cracks above 6,800, 6,900, not doing anything, and then just kind of adjust from there. Still 2-to-1, so not a bad trade. So there's a couple of ways you could play that right now. If you don't want to be in a position, and sometimes it's kind of nicer to not be in a position, to just be neutral and flat and wait for this to play out, because then you think more clearly, your perspective's a little bit easier. You're not checking the trade every 5 minutes going, has it moved yet? And just, you know, kind of using up psychological capital, if you will, and just kind of waiting it out. You know, not a whole lot to do. Zoom out, look at the daily chart, and that's really your key right now. Wait for this thing to do something. And that's where we're at on the BTC side. And looking at the altcoin pairs, like I said, some of those are setting up for some potential bounces here versus Bitcoin. So many of them have been in a pretty decent downtrend on these daily charts. You look at something like Cardano, potential little double bottom forming here. Maybe, right? That's just a big maybe. There's no confirmation of that yet. You got to wait for at least the daily 10 EMA to get taken out to say, yeah, maybe we're going to get that. Binance Coin forming a little bit of support, but, you know, they're all on the edge right now. EOS still trending lower. ETH, we just looked at it, still trending lower. So many of those are still trending lower. There's no clear signal yet that they're done, but yeah, I mean, most of these charts look pretty rough still. There's just no doubt about that. I mean, the move that we've seen here in the last, you know, several weeks, even month and a half, has been technically very bearish for everything. I mean, there's, you know, it's very far and few between where you can look at a chart and say, wow, that's actually bullish. Most of them, if they're bullish, they're just bouncing, right? Monero is one of these that has been on the radar lately. Nice little move off the bottom here today. And there's a few. There's always something moving. But for the most part, yeah, still very bearish. Still very broken technically because of just what we've seen here. So that's the BTC here. Before I move into some of these altcoin names that you guys want to look at, let's look at some of the other macro pictures here real quick. The total crypto market cap. Obviously, Bitcoin dominance near 68-70% drives most of this, so the chart's going to look very similar, but same thing, right? You've got this little wedge right into the 22 EMA on the daily, and so because of this picture, it still has me leaning bearish, because technically speaking, this is a bearish pattern, right? You get the big drop, you get the retracement bounce. Let me do the fib on this. I haven't even done that. I bet you it's at the 618 now. It depends on where you measure it. If you go wick to wick, you know, at this point you're at the 382. If you look at the impulse move, as they often call it, that probably puts it at around right here. And here you're at a 50% retracement. So, you know, and if you go for just the red day that day, you're right at, you know, you're already above 618. So, but I would probably start it here. This was really the kind of the crack that dropped, and it was just relentless selling after that. But right at the moving averages, so, you know, just kind of this all leads me to believe, yeah, maybe we get a little bit spike higher, but I think it'd be healthier to at least show a little bit of a drop and then a higher low. Then that would set up for a little bit better of a move over the next month or so. But for now, got to remain cautious, got to remain a little bit bearish because, yeah, we hit an oversold level, but the trend is not your friend right now. It's still, there's a lot of selling pressure. So let's look at the stock market here. The stocks are having a very nice bounce off the lows. We're hitting, you know, we were hitting record down days over and over and over circuit breakers were getting hit almost every day, and now we're hitting record up days. It's like the SPY is up 10%, the Dow is up 10, just crazy moves to the upside, historic moves, truly unprecedented times. The volume here is just insane over the last couple of weeks, and just even off the lows, right, from the climactic low we saw here last week to where we're at now. The S&P 500 is up 18%. You look at these names that were getting slaughtered, names like Boeing here. Just crazy moves. Boeing went from $89 up to $190 right now. That's a 100% move in Boeing in about a week's time. But keep in mind, after a literal collapse of the price, dropping from $350 down to $89. Just insane what we've seen here. If you're a trader, though, just sometimes it feels like once in a lifetime opportunity if you're a trader, right? The type of moves you've seen, whether you're buying put options or whether you're going straight short, you don't get these kind of moves, right? In names like Boeing, a 74% drop. You're basically making in 2 to 3 weeks what the buy and hold guys have made in literally months and months and months, right? So it's just crazy. And on the flip side, right, if you catch the bounce, right, you're getting some tremendous moves to the upside in a very short period of time. But personally, I think these are all just bounces. You get these massive bounces, you get these reactions to the stimulus, you're getting reactions to maybe this is kind of passing us by and we're going to recover, and people on CNBC are saying, oh, it's going to be a V-shaped recovery. Me personally, I'm not in that camp. I think you're getting an oversold bounce. I think you got some really good trading going on, but I'm expecting a lower high and then a rollover. And then at that point, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. We saw this play out in the 2008 financial crisis. You had a big drop, and then it looked like, oh, things are happening, and there's TARP, and this stimulus, and that stimulus. And then you had some really big rallies. And then they kind of petered out, and they sat tight for a few weeks. And next thing you know, the roller coaster ran down again, and we made new relative lows. Do we see that here again? Maybe, right? Granted, this one's different, as they always say. This time it's different because we have a different dynamic going on. It's not just a housing bubble that burst or anything like that. This is a true black swan event. You had a pandemic that literally put the brakes on the entire economy, and it is different, right? We don't know how it's going to play out. If the pandemic gets worse, then I don't see stocks dropping or bouncing higher. I see them dropping lower. If the pandemic passes, I still see stocks dropping lower for a little while because the numbers haven't even come out yet. We're just barely starting to see the repercussions of the economic impact, right? The unemployment rate spiking. It's just a rough scene out there. Wall Street's loving it. Yeah, stocks are up. They're making money. They're still getting their bonuses. But what about the average person? People like you and me. People are worried about their jobs. They're worried about their home. They're worried about how am I going to pay rent and how am I going to put food on the table, and the reality of all that, right? It's still going to take a long time to play out, and it's not going to happen in 1 week, right? That's just not the reality. So yeah, that's a good question, right? Where do you put your money? It depends if you're talking long term or if you're talking just trading. If you're trading, heck, anywhere right now, it's just the volatility is so high. You can play currencies, you can play stocks, heck, you can play commodities. Look at gold, and even crypto is tradable right now. But longer term, yeah, it's tough because do you buy the dip in stocks? Do you wait for them to drop lower? Do you just park in cash? Do you just park in gold? Do you buy Bitcoin at 6-7K and look for that 20K retake? There's a lot of interesting places to look right now. When things are dropping, if you're looking at the long-term view, the super long-term, those companies you think are going to survive are generally good bets, right? Or the S&P, right? Just kind of a broader macro view. Things like Apple, right? It's like, yeah, they're taking a hit, but are they going to go away? Like, I don't think so. They have the tremendous cash reserves that they can ride this out. It's the small businesses that are going to get hurt. The Facebooks of the world, the Amazons of the world. Heck, Tesla is not bad here if it continues to retest. But those are not going to go away, in my opinion, right? Amazon, Walmart, those. But, am I going to try to catch the falling knife from a long-term play in the Carnival Cruise Lines of the world? Probably not. Tradable bounces, yeah, for sure. Long-term investments, I mean, you just got to think of a person like a business owner. Like, are you going to buy this business right now? Probably higher risk. There's probably better bets. So it just kind of depends on your view. I think from a trading perspective, we've had a very good balance. If you were knife catching, buying options here made sense because you literally have seen 100% bounces here in some of these stocks. And that just, they're just literally once in a lifetime opportunities. Now, you get that. It's just a saying, right? Obviously, this happens more than once in a lifetime these days, but it's not like it happens every month. I mean, these are truly rare events that you get those kind of moves. But now I'm thinking we're bouncing, and I'm looking for more downside in the alt stock. So I was looking for some bounce action. We've got it. And now I'm thinking, okay, this is going to start to roll over here again. At least those names that were hit pretty hard. And we'll see some pullbacks again. I mean, you got like American Airlines. Yeah, they're getting bailed out. But longer term, I think travel's still going to take a hit. Gaming stocks like Las Vegas Sands, right? They bounced from 32 to 50 bucks. Maybe they start to roll over here again. We saw Marriott, we saw, Hilton, in those type of things here. What's Hilton Group? HLT? Yeah, Hilton Worldwide. So, just crazy moves. $45 back up to 78. Maybe we drop again. So I think a lot of that is some good bounces. But from a long-term perspective, I don't know. I'd still be more conservative if I had a choice. Either cash or gold or something. Now, keep in mind, it depends on which phase we're in right now. And I mentioned this a little bit during the last live stream talking about, you get that initial deflationary phase. And then once the stimulus kind of runs out, then you get this inflationary boom because of the currencies being so devalued. And in that scenario, you want to be in either hard assets or even stocks, right? A lot of stocks will hold up. It just depends on currency exposures and all that stuff. But hard assets will do better. Even real estate, which I think has topped, but even something like real estate would do better than just pure cash in an inflationary depression, right? Which, let's all hope it doesn't actually get there. But, man, crazy times we live in here. So, all right, let me catch up here. Michael in the house. Brandon, what's up, dudes? Good to have you guys here. Good to see some of the Node insiders joining the stream here. Speaking of Node insiders, so let me go back to that here. Many of you are familiar with this. I set up a coupon code for you stay-at-home crowd. So you can learn, you can watch some videos, you can do some stuff here while you're at home. And so there's a coupon. You'll get 25% off your first purchase. So whatever, if that's a monthly thing, a quarterly, or 6 months, you're going to get 25% off. And so the discount code is in the video notes, but it's essentially SAFE with caps, SAFE, SAFE. So if you use that when you sign up, you'll get a discount. And I'll just run that here for a couple of weeks while everyone is quarantined and sequestered. And I know you guys are probably getting bored and stir crazy, but hey, social distancing. All right. What about inverses like SPXS? I'll play those from a day trading perspective. They're from a long-term thing, like as far as holding them, there's some issues with some of those names. They don't give you a one-to-one return, if you will, because of things like slippage and the way they calculate real time every day at the close. And what I mean by that is if you get a 3-to-1, something like that, and the SPY drops 10% over the course of 6 months or whatever, they're going to lag a little bit. You'll still do okay, but they're going to lag, right? And so I like to use those for shorter term time frames, maybe day trading or swing trading, a few days at a time to give you some octane. But if you're looking at a longer term play, I like to go with something more like a bear fund, a true bear mutual fund, or an option like just a straight put option or a put spread, or sell call option, something like that. Because then you can trade with much smaller, but then you can still capitalize on the move. So just that's my thoughts. But I do use the leveraged ETFs, especially for day trading or swing trading. Like for example, if you're trading the GDX. then I like to use things like the nugget or the dust, right? So the nugget's the 3x up, and the dust is the 3x down. But again, you can see that the chart doesn't track exactly. There's a little bit of slippage and all that good stuff. Just something you got to factor in. But it does give you a little bit of a nice little leverage play there. So looking at Tesla, Tesla was a nice bounce play off of this support line. So if you go to the weekly chart of Tesla, you know, there was some clear support around that 360 to 380 move or whatever, that breakout level basically. And it came right back to that wick just briefly underneath and bounced straight up to these moving averages. I don't think it's done, but that was a nice trade there if you were able to catch that over the last 2 weeks. That was a very nice trade. And I know some of you guys did. But after this, you know, now what? That's the big question. Are we going to get the drop? Are we going to get a higher low, the retest, or does it make a new lower low? Personally, I think stocks are in a bear market now. I don't see them making the low this fast. I think it's going to take some time to play out, unfortunately. But the move has been ferocious, fast and furious, quick. So maybe the brunt of the downside is behind us, and it's kind of a slow grind lower from here. Who knows? But I don't think it's over yet, personally. Just my opinion, of course. Things change daily, weekly. Looking at silver, I mean, silver, wow. Quick down to below 12 bucks. Me personally, I still think the industrial metals lag, and silver is in that camp. Platinum, palladium too, you know, the white metals. Palladium is probably the better white metal to be in right now. Silver and gold, you know, they used to kind of trade the alternative currencies. But if you look at the gold-silver ratio, right, it's been in a crazy uptrend here. Let me see if I can calculate this. Hold on. There we go. And just hitting some crazy levels here. I'm doing this backwards. There we go. No, I guess I was doing it right. But anyway, you get the idea. The gold-silver ratio, right? Just crazy move to the upside. And after hitting some historic levels, it just, you know, it was at 90, and then it went to 100, and then it went to 120. You know, and if you follow the GSR historical point of view, anything over 70 was generally considered like that's a great buy. And then we finally broke that rule and we've cracked it, and now silver's, you know, GSR is at 120, 130, which is crazy. And that's because gold has been going up and silver hasn't joined the party. Could it outperform here? Maybe, but I just don't see silver having the big benefit that it used to have. And if it's a hedge play, if it's a currency hedge play, right now gold's still the better trade in my opinion. Okay, so let's pause on the macro. Let's go back to the crypto space, take a look at some of those. I'll wrap it up here just with some quick reviews of some charts, and we'll go from there. So yeah, so if you're just joining, if you missed the beginning part of this, I looked at the BTC dominance, and there's two things, you know, that are kind of shaping my thesis, if you will, on what some potential setups could be doing here. First is the BTC dominance has rallied right up to that 68% level. This was kind of the first big resistance I was looking for, and maybe could be the point where you see the BTC dominance pull back a little bit. You know, does it continue its trend and drop and make new lows? I mean, hopefully, but even if it doesn't, you could still see a couple of weeks of some decent alt bounces versus Bitcoin. If not, then the next level to be watching is around that, you know, mid 70 to 71% range on the way up. But looking at some of the bigger cap names, and then we'll go into the small caps, but things like ETH, right? Going to the 4-hour chart, you know, potentially setting out for a little bit of a bounce here. They are very oversold, but it could be a couple of ways it plays out, right? Maybe you get that climactic spike lower and then the bounce, or it finally just goes flat and then cracks this downtrend. But in any situation, right, it's worth watching some of these names for a potential bounce versus Bitcoin, right? Now, it's interesting because personally, I still think this is a little bit of a wedge on Bitcoin, and I'm looking for a drop, at least a higher low on the daily chart, whether it's from here or whether it's from 7,500. Somewhere along the way, I'm thinking we at least get another pullback that breaks this lower trend line. Where that happens, you know, who knows, right? But that's what I'm looking for. So the interesting question is, if that happens, will the BTC dominance fall meaning will the alts kind of hold some ground in the event of a Bitcoin pullback, or do they resume their downtrend and the BTC dominance just spikes to that 70%, right? And so that's the kind of conundrum, right? That's the thesis right now. But I'm kind of in the camp of Bitcoin might drop a little bit, but if it starts to find a higher low and settle out, that's going to kick off a little bit of a rally in the alt BTC pairs. And so I'm definitely watching these for some signs of this is starting to turn the corner. We're starting to see some volume coming in. And it doesn't mean, hey, the bear is over and these last 2 months of pullback are done and it's off to the races. It could be, but it could at least mean, hey, a couple of days, couple of weeks of alt BTC bounces, and that's fine, right? That's definitely tradable. And so that's what I'm looking for, and I'm keeping an eye on the big cap names for some of those clues for, potential double bottoms forming here on some of these. Like there's Litecoin trying to retest the lows versus Bitcoin. EOS doing something similar, but they haven't confirmed yet. There's no confirmation in any form just yet that they've turned the trend. Clearly, the trend is still lower. Clearly below moving averages. Moving averages are trending lower. There's just no sign of buying. Yes, it's oversold, but it could stay that way for some time. So, there's no confirmation, but it's worth watching just because of what I've outlined on the Bitcoin macro chart. So it's definitely worth watching. So what are some of the other names popping right now? Let's go back to the dashboard here. So Ocean, High Performance Blockchain, this was on here yesterday. Data, Engine Coin showed up on the list today. Monaco has been a leader as of late. Monero has been bucking the trend here a little bit. Don't know what's going on with S&T, but it's been hot. Metal had a big move. So let's go look at some of those there. So I'm going to go to Metal real quick here. The token cards have been in vogue lately, but holy smokes, what the heck happened here? Yesterday had a big day, today another huge day, and it just kind of quick move back. If you zoom in on that 4-hour chart, I mean, this is crazy. 100+% move very quickly, pulling right back to that 10 EMA on the 4-hour chart. Maybe you get another bounce trade in and around here for a second leg up. So interesting move, but nice little breakout. You can see the breakout point was right there on that 4-hour chart. Let me zoom in there to show you what I mean. If you were watching this, here you go. So this was the resistance here, and then it set up for a little bit of a breakout there, and then of course we all know what happened. Bam, once it hit that level, straight up from there. So pretty nice move, pulling right back right now. We'll see if we can show another leg up. XMR, for whatever reason, Monero has been showing a little bit of bounce action here. Is it done yet? RSI on that 4-hour is hitting the highs, so I'd wait for a little bit of a pause pullback maybe to around, where is this level here? In and around there would be ideal, 7100, 7200 on the BTC pair. But on the daily chart, it is starting to form a little bit of a low. It never broke support, which is good. It's held this support here. This was October, this was November, this was December, and then we retested it again in March, and here bouncing again. So one of the few names right now that is actually getting moving averages back up again, and price is starting to push higher as volume comes in. So that looks good. How's it look on the USD side? XMR USD. It still has that bear flag bounce look, just like Bitcoin has that little wedge look. So this is interesting. Does it keep going, or do we get that retest and then move higher? So kind of mixed. Depends on which angle you're coming from here. That's certainly not easy. Some of the other ones here, before I get the names on your guys' list here, let me look at this real quick. MCO and Engine, I'll look at some of those here. So Monaco, Crypto.com, whatever they go by now. Once it broke out, it's just still going. It gave you a little bit of a pause, but this was really the level to be watching. We were watching that for a long time, and then it had this shakeout, but look at how quickly it recovered and then just took off from there. So very nice. A little bit of a pullback here, but good move here on the daily chart here. Engine Bitcoin here. Yeah, not too shabby. Having a good move here. If we go to that 4-hour chart, looks like yesterday, 2 days ago, I had a rally pulling back. Nice little pause. Trying to get going again here. Not too bad. I mean, it's range bound. If you zoom out again, these are kind of moves off the lows, so it's not like it's exactly trending higher, but on the lower time frames, definitely worth noting. Yeah, what else? What do we want to look at on this list? I guess that's it. Status. I don't know what's going on with Status. Those smaller cap, low volume names are suspect. They're tough to trade, but it's been in play for whatever reason the last few weeks. All right, what else we got here? H-bar. Looking at that guy. You know, I was looking for a bounce here off of this pullback. It looks like that's already played out. I mean, that was this move here, and since the last few weeks, it's just kind of been dropping, and it's also starting to take out this little bit of a support trend line. You can see on the daily chart, the moving averages are now inverted. Here as of yesterday, you got the 10 crossing below the 22 as prices just continue to pull back. Interesting that the RSI is right at 40. This is where you want to see it hold if it's going to bounce. Volume on the pullback has been light, so that's good, I guess. But I don't know. I'm not so sure I'd knife catch this one here. I'd probably wait for it to at least show some support. The Tika coins, yeah, maybe I'll look at those later. Let me see here. Some of the other ones, VeChain, VET, and some of the other China names are looking interesting here lately. So here's VeChain. Let me go to a different exchange here. There we go. Binance. It is starting to round out here a little bit. You know, there again, no confirmation just yet, but yeah, some of these are starting to find a place where they're stopped going down at least. At least that's step one, right? At least stop going down. But this dropped. Here's NEO right to the 10 EMA. Still no life yet. NEO USD was a potential breakout candidate. The one I was watching yesterday here. Just like Bitcoin, decision time is coming up here. You got the price starting to wedge between the lower trend line support and right above horizontal price support at $7. So decision time. If it breaks above, then I'm looking for NEO 850, maybe, you know, maybe up here to 10 bucks. If not, then, you know, you look for a higher low at that point. Yeah, you like the title, Mike? I was inspired by your post. I said, yep, let's do this. Do something already, Bitcoin. Here's XRP, not a whole lot there. What were some of the other names you wanted to look at here? I'm just catching up on the comments here. Stratus. And just range bound, even on the longer time frames, just choppy and Wiki. This is a tough one. It's hard to make heads or tails out of this guy here. I mean, you can see here, just been range bound since August. My goodness. WanChain making new lows. Is this all-time lows on WanChain? Wow. I think it is. Yeah, at least versus Bitcoin. Yeah, it's basically at the new lows here. Kraken, you know, and you will have to wonder how many of these projects, if they're gonna eventually produce and do something good, you know, are these longer term values, or are they just gonna become the names of 2016 and 2017 that flatlined? They went drop and they just went flat. A lot of these names, I suspect, will do that. You know, they came out, they were the hot thing for a while, and you know, deflated, and now maybe they just kind of sit tight in a long range. You know, and by that I mean names like, you know, Golem. Remember the names from yesteryear? I mean, they were the hot thing, and then just like blah, you know, Siacoin and all those other names. You get the idea here. Just deflated and just, you know, never really went anywhere. And I think a lot of these will do that. Oh, Tezos, yeah, XTZ here. So looking at Tezos, Bitcoin. Wow, look at this guy here. This is interesting. And so if you look at Tezos, you know, this last little spike here in December, starting to retest that. So far, the support is trying to hold, but I think I mentioned this in my last stream. This feels like a descending triangle to me. It feels like it's just getting squeezed here. And you'll see this guy resolve one way or the other here in the next, you know, in the coming days. So yeah, interesting. Maybe you get the shakeout. So here's how I would do this. I'd keep an eye on this one, because maybe you do get that shakeout. People say, there it goes, it breaks support. But if it can quickly crack back above the line, very often that's a bullish sign, right? If it's kind of the shakeout and then the quick spike higher. As soon as it starts to close back above the line, I'd be interested. Alternatively, if it can just bounce off of here and show some strength off of this support, then good. But man, it's testing. It's decision time. Smash the likes. Yes, thank you, Christopher. All right. Oh, let me see here. Looking at a few others here. Let me go through some of those big cap names here. Stellar Lumens. Looking at the Stellar. Long time support right here on Stellar. Does it hold? Man. It's not looking too pretty. The problem with names like Stellar and XRP is the massive supply that is still held by the founders, and they're just going to sell. I mean, let's be honest. They're just going to continue to sell and sell and sell. XRP, they're not shy about telling you we use this to raise money, and so there's just a tremendous amount of supply. It's just not. There's no end in sight just yet, right? And so that's just a headwind that's going to be for a lot of these names. But near term, you get those spikes, those bounces that certainly help. Let me go to the bot status here and refresh this, see if any of these names are showing a little bit of life. I don't think they are, though. Not yet. I mean, we saw the charts. They're all still dropping versus Bitcoin, but I'm certainly watching them for some potential reversals. Let me do this here. So XMR, Monero, of course, one of the better looking ones. Dash, it's still long. Dash, really? Let me see here. Dash Bitcoin. That's gonna have to. I bet you that's gonna turn soon. I'm surprised it's still long. Dash had that nice move. It was looking like okay, a little pullback, ready to go, but just still drifting lower. What else here? BAT, IOTA, kind of showing caution. BNB caution. Let's go look at some of those real quick here. Yeah, like most of these names, honestly, I'm gonna wait for some of these upper trend lines to be taken out. You're gonna have wicks along the way, but until they start to turn the corner or show some double bottom type action or something, you just gotta give the trend the benefit of the doubts. But I'm watching this. This is really the one I'm watching the most right now. Is just what happens next on the Bitcoin side of things. It's been flat. Come on, Bitcoin, do something. Maybe I should just go like on a 100x long position. That should tank the market. Let me see here. What else? Litecoin BTC trending lower. We saw that. Ooh, Decentraland, Smackarood. Let's see here. Ravens a little bit green here today. Theta. What were some of these other names here? The Tika coins. RCN was probably the better of the bunch. It's still kind of trying to break out here. We'll see if that happens. TNT, it's been a little bit of a bounce here lately. Cryptermium, I would never say that. CPRT, still dropping. Aeon, nope. Monaco is probably the better one right now. Tezos, interesting here. HBAR, I don't know yet. Link, the almighty Link. Whatever happened to that guy? Let's go see the almighty Link. Still holding up above this support here near term, so this would be a good place for it to bounce if it wants to bounce, but not showing any life just yet. All right. Okay, so let's go back. I'm going to go BTC here before I wrap this up. Just wanted to do a live stream, kind of a market update, end of week for many of you guys. And what a week it's been with the stock market rallying, bouncing off the lows, the stimulus infinitum, record-breaking up days, followed by those little record-breaking down days we saw last week. But, my thoughts are I think we get a bounce that fails, if not here, maybe in and around there. And at minimum, you're going to need a retest, but I'm thinking it's not over yet. Hopefully, we don't get another week of circuit breakers hit every day. Don't want to see that, but I'm still thinking we get some downside action to go on the stock side of things here. But looking at the BTC, the question was, does the infinite stimulus help Bitcoin? Longer term, I think it does. I mean, Bitcoin, remember what we've said, the biggest thing Bitcoin has going for it is the supply-demand fundamentals. The fact that it's limited, the fact that the supply curve for Bitcoin is basically doing this now. Let me draw here for you guys. We've seen the first few years of Bitcoin's life, new supply hitting the market was coming up pretty quick. And then here in recent years, it's starting to round out here a little bit, and we're reaching the point where soon the supply curve is going to start to flatten out. And when we get to that point, right, this here, that's the point where, you've got 80% plus of the coin out there, and it's just pure supply demand fundamentals at that point. If people want more BTC and the supply is not just being increased at such a high rate, and the inflation rate of Bitcoin starts to drop drastically, then there's only one alternative, right? Higher prices. And with all the money printing, yeah, Bitcoin could see that. But the fact is, there's a lot of competition, especially with the big cap, the macro funds. They're going to buy things like Apple and Amazon, and they're going to buy REITs and, hotels that are in trouble, and those hard assets, right? When there's that much money, especially because you got to remember, for you and I, most of us work on a cash basis, meaning, we don't take out a $10 million loan to go buy an asset. We buy it with cash. Very few of us hold those kind of revolving credit lines that are used to make investment purchases. And in the era of negative interest rates, free money, infinite pumping, then that helps those business models that depend on borrowing money to go invest. And they do that, they invest in the storage units and the apartment complexes and, and all that stuff, which is why you've seen commercial real estate prices just go crazy here over the last several years, because of the cheap money, and so if the stimulus continues, that's what's going to benefit first. But if it gets scary, and I think if there's a deflationary crisis with the currencies, or an inflationary crisis, then, hey, take care, Brandon. Thanks for stopping by, man. Then I expect, yes, you get those hedges, and Bitcoin is a benefit, and gold as well, right? And some of those like true safe haven assets at that point. But I'll be honest, you don't want that. You don't want that. You want Bitcoin to naturally rise because of supply, demand, and all that stuff, but you don't want it to be the asset of last resort, because let's be real. In the event that happens, we all have much bigger worries than, oh, right, the Bitcoin that I own is now at 20,000 or 100,000, because it won't matter as much when the dollar you own is worth 1% of what it was last year. You'll have bigger issues, bigger things to worry about. So, and that's reality. It's insurance. Yeah, if it happens, you want to own some of this stuff, but it's one of those things like you really don't want that happen, right? You want Bitcoin to grow on its own naturally. You want it to be a popular asset, but not because it's the end of the world. All right, just my thoughts. But anyway, so that's where we're at on BTC. Just keep in mind, we're bouncing into a little bit of resistance here. These are some higher time frames to be watching. It's at the 22 EMA on the daily. If it continues higher, mid to upper 7Ks is what I'm watching as the next target. But personally, as I said, I'm still kind of looking for a retest. I'm kind of betting on the downside here right now and thinking we get at least a pullback. I hope we don't get a new low. I hope that's it. It's done. And it just kind of starts to chop and flop here for the next month or two and build a base. But I'm at least looking for a pullback here near term. So until then, we just got to wait this out, because this is the very short-term view of Bitcoin. And it's basically gone flat and tight and range bound. And it's one of those, come on, Bitcoin, do something. But until it does, there's some levels to be watching for now, and until it gets out of that range, there's just really not a whole lot to do. So I hope this helped, guys. Thanks for watching. If you just joined, if you missed, check out the video notes. There's a link and a description here, but code SAFE, SAFE, if you want to get a discount, the stay-at-home discount for new subscribers here to the Node Insider. So wish you all the best. Stay healthy, stay safe, guys. Take care. I'll see you guys in the next one.